So before I get into today's lesson, I do want to check in with everybody to find out how things are going. Is there anything you need from me? How are the assignments? I'm not getting a lot of emails, especially from this class. But does everybody understand what's happening with the group assignment? What's happening next week with the midterm?
I just have a quick question.
Sure, go ahead, Destiny.
With the group assignment and the outline, is it like a full outline you want this Sunday?
You mean what do you mean by a full outline?
Like the full abstract and like outline page?
Well, so the abstract, and I find it interesting. I keep getting questions on abstracts. So an abstract is really a summation of everything that you've done and everything that you found or proposed. We're not really doing a full-on proposal here with this upcoming assignment for the end of this week. So an abstract really generally, and I don't know, maybe other professors have different understandings or teachings of what abstracts are, but you really don't need an abstract until after you have at least a rough draft and you have a conclusion at the end, because your conclusion is part of that abstract. If you notice, when you go into some of these articles in EBSCO or psych articles or whatever journals you're looking at, the abstract really gives you a whole paragraph on what the entire article is about from beginning to end. Okay, so your introduction, why is it important, what we looked up, what we did, what we found, and our conclusion. That's usually how the flow of that abstract goes. So, but if you look at it, that's a great strategy, or great research strategy, is to look at the abstract first. And if it looks like something that you want to delve into with your literary review or literary research, you can go through the details later. So anyway, that's what an abstract is. So when you get to, what is it, week 9, you're going to want an abstract for that, because you're going to have your rough draft. You'll have everything pretty much put together. It's going to be a little rough, that's why it's a rough draft. But I would expect to see an abstract for that, because you have all your information. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Yep. So your outline, again, I do have examples and a brief little tutorial, a link on content and course content that you can get into, and it'll really show you how to put together an outline, what it looks like, APA style, double spaced, please. Don't create more work for you than what you need to do. Double space is going to save you a lot of time and a lot of headache. Otherwise, you're going to do double the work to get those potentially 3 pages. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay. Everybody understands what's happening next week with the midterm?
What day is the midterm again?
Say again?
I'm sorry. What day was the midterm again?
The midterm opens up on Monday, and I'm going to ask that you have it done by, before I spit this out, I believe I said Friday, but let me confirm that.
So do we have class Monday of the midterm or no?
We do not. So I'll be available. What is happening here? I will be available. Oh, there we go. On Monday, actually, yeah, next Monday. When's our fall break? Does anybody know? It's not next Monday. I think it's the following Monday, correct?
The 9th or like 10th through like the 13th or something. We have off at like
yeah.
Monday.
Yeah.
And then I think classes resume the Wednesday after Columbus Day. I think that's when classes. I think we have off the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. So I think it's 5 days.
Yeah. Are they still calling it Columbus Day?
Not. Yeah, I guess.
Columbus Day has disappeared from all of my calendars. So what's that?
Indigenous People Day. Is that what they're calling it now?
Yeah, I think they've renamed that. So yeah, but Mitch, I think you're right. I think that Monday.
Oh, I just looked up on my calendar on my phone. It said on Monday, October 12th is it? It says Columbus Day and also says People's Day.
People's Day. Okay, so
I
guess.
But there's another word on
here.
here that I can't pronounce. That's Indingia. I can't pronounce that.
Indigenous Peoples Day. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we. Indigenous, as in natural, as in native. So Indigenous People Day. So yeah, okay. So that Monday, I will not be meeting for a lecture. So we'll just have Wednesday of that.
Now, so you're saying we are not meeting on Monday, like this?
I will
Monday
be available. I'll
Would it be
I'll
the
be
same
available
thing for Wednesday?
Right, exactly. So I'll be available to answer questions if anybody has any one-on-one questions for their grades or whatever.
Okay.
But as far as lectures, I will not be doing lectures next week, just to give you time. I know many of you are very busy.
So what you're telling us is then, like, instead of like having like class, like you're gonna have office hours on Monday and Wednesday and next week.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just to give you all an opportunity to go ahead and study that week. I know you're very, very busy with work and schedules and school and family. So I want to give you as much time as possible to prepare for the midterm. No secrets to the midterm. Yeah, I think I covered this on Monday. 50 multiple choice questions, all pulled from the quizzes. Yeah, so no secrets there. I will. Yeah, you can take the quizzes as many times as you want. Now, I'm going to try and get something out, hopefully by the end of this week. Yeah, by the end of this week, to do the full quiz. So instead of taking 10 randomized ones, you would get like the full quiz. And of course, I don't give you the answers. You have to look up the answers yourselves. Like if you get them incorrect, it'll show you which one you got incorrect. Very similar to the quiz, but you'll have to go back and find the answer if you got them incorrect. Okay. All right. Any other questions?
Thank you for giving us study time.
Absolutely. And I kind of built that in because I didn't know which way. This is my first year. I've taught online before, but I've never done one of these hybrid ones. And I wanted to leave some time in case we had any hiccups along the way. I could use that as like a backflow week if we needed it. But I mean, we're steaming forward. I mean, everything has just been going according to plan and going very well. So I thank you all for that. All right. So speaking of midterm exams, let's talk about forgetting. Okay. So maybe some of you have. I think I asked this on Monday. What is the earliest memory? I know. I think a couple of you have chimed in, but have any of you really gone back and thought about what your earliest memory in life was?
Kind of.
What's that?
Kind of like a guess. I think I know what mine is, but I'm not sure.
Okay. Do you remember how far back you went? How old you were?
I was 4, but I think it's because it was something big because my brother said his first words. And I remember that well, but I think that I could remember something before that.
Okay. All right. So about 4. Anybody else? Anybody remember anything prior to 4 years old?
I think I remember being on the roof with my dad when he was painting the house when I was like 2.
Okay. So you remember images of him being on the house? Do you remember any kind of interactions in any way?
I was sitting up there with him.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I remember getting a heat gun, stripping old paint off the side of the house, and I think my brother and I were both up there with him. Yeah, we were like 2 or 3 years old, if I remember correctly.
Okay. Wow. All right. So 2 or 3. Yeah. So the reason I ask is because when we start forming memories, and I'm kind of going back, backtracking a little bit. We were talking about how memories start in terms of what we think, and we think in terms of symbols and emotions, right? When we start forming memories, it's very contingent upon the language that we learn. So what do I mean by that? Many of you don't remember prior to 3 or 4 years old because we're not able to absorb what memories are in terms of language, okay? And we know this, and maybe some of you have heard of the Stroop Effect. In fact, I'm gonna kind of give you a little taste of what the Stroop Effect actually is here. I do need a volunteer. Who wants to volunteer for me?
Me.
Let's see. All right. One more time. How do you pronounce it? Is it Amelie?
Amelie.
Amelie. I apologize for butchering that every time. All right. So Amelie, what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to give you a list. The list is going to appear on the screen, and as fast as you can. I need another. Anybody have a timer? Anybody willing to be my timer? Okay. So when I say go, Amelie is going to read off the list that I provide for her. Okay. So Amelie, you're just going to let me know what the color is that you see. All right.
Okay. Okay. Ooh, I've done this before. It's so hard. Oh my God.
Okay. So you should be a pro at this. You know what to look for, right? All right. Are you ready?
Yeah.
And our timer's ready. And go.
Red, green, red, blue, blue, yellow, green.
All right. Very good. What was our time, timekeeper?
Seconds.
How long?
3.92 seconds.
3.92. I thought it was faster than that, but okay. All right. Let's try the next one here, Amelie, and see how you do with this one. Now, for this one, just give me the color, okay?
Color. Okay. Gotcha.
All right. Timekeeper ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And make sure. Okay. And go.
Blue, red, yellow, green, green, red, yellow.
All right. How much time?
That was 2 seconds this time. That was faster.
2 seconds. Okay. All right. Let's try it one more time. So all I need for you to do is give me the color of what's coming up. Don't read it. Okay. Are you ready?
Yep.
Here. And as soon as it appears, go ahead and keep the time.
Green, red, red, blue, yellow, blue, green.
Okay. All right. What do we get for that, timekeeper?
7 seconds for that one.
7 seconds. All right. That's almost double, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what happened there? Melly, what can you kind of describe to me what the frustration, and maybe any of you that have been playing along?
The word is not the color, and it makes it really hard because you're trying the word instead of like focusing on the color.
Right. So that is a good indication that we remember things in terms of language, okay? And what was happening there was an interference, with masking interference. So even though you knew what that color was, and we demonstrated that because you were able to read it when the word was congruent with the color, and even when we had the X's out, you were still able to read that. But what happened when we had an incongruency with the letters, with what was read versus what the color was? You were trying to read before you were trying to determine what color that was. So that's an indication that we remember things. While we do remember things in symbols and emotions, we try to use words first. So anyway, that's one of the explanations as to why we don't really remember things until 3 or 4 years old, because we don't have a firm grasp on the language and associate that with the symbols. All right. Now, interestingly enough, what do you think would happen if I gave those incongruent letters to a toddler, like 5 or 6 year old toddler? What do you think? How do you think they would perform on it?
Better than me.
Better than the adults. Better than the adults, because they've mastered colors, but they haven't mastered language yet. Yeah. So they have an easier time doing that. Interesting, huh? Yeah. Okay, so I meant to do that last Monday, but didn't get around to that. So let's move into forgetting. I do want to cover some definitions and some theories with how we forget, what forgetting is and why we do it, okay? All right. So forgetting, put simply, according to your book, is the failure to retrieve.
I'm sorry, you have a black screen.
Okay, sorry about that. Let me try it again.
Much better, thank you.
There we go. Yep, thank you for letting me know. Failure to retrieve information from memory. I'll just put from memory. Now, our failure to retrieve could be for multiple reasons. It could be because we've had something that superseded it. We've learned something new. It could be that it could be from memory decay. We haven't accessed that in a long time. So there are theories that say that if we don't use those pathways, and those neural pathways tend to dwindle to almost nothing. Not nothing, but almost nothing, okay? So just to kind of illustrate, so Ebbinghaus, who you read in your book, postulated and used different experiments to show how memory loss occurs at a exponentially rapid rate. Okay, so he gave his participants a task, a list of things to remember, and within a minute, most of his subjects were able to remember 100% of what he had presented to them, okay? After about 20 minutes, that went down to just above 50%. After an hour, dropped to just above 40%. And what happened after about 9 hours is 30%, okay? So and I kind of use this, what I do with my information that I present to students is I figure out ways to reintroduce. So for example, if I give you a list of mental health disorders, I present that to you, and usually within a couple minutes, 7 to 8 minutes, you're going to be able to retain that. So we work with that. If you remember our sequence here, we have our sensory input, our senses, with our selective memory deciding what goes into our short-term memory or working memory, right? And then into long-term memory. Now, the strength of the information that goes into our long-term memory depends on what with our short-term memory? Anybody remember? How much we rehearse, right? Rehearsal. So how much we rehearse that, how much I reintroduce it to you, how much I get students to use that information and apply that information strengthens the long-term memory. What goes into the long-term memory, which in turn gives us better recall for later, okay? Because we've really strengthened those neural pathways, okay? So, but what Ebbinghaus was talking about was just a brief introduction to information, it to the subjects or the students, and then they just sharply decline because that working memory, that rehearsal has not occurred, okay? So, given that, we look at after 2 days, we're down to, maybe 30%, right? And what happens after about 31 days, almost a month later? Almost, 20%. Don't let this chart mislead you because there's still information there. Learning is a permanent, if you remember from last chapter, learning is permanent change in behavior or thought, permanent, okay? The neural pathways are formed, they don't change. They don't change. So to some level, that information is still there. It might have to be reintroduced from long-term memory and then rehearsed. And if you think back, many of you have probably had this experience. And many of you that are moving on from psychology and you're not going to be staying in the psychological field, perhaps you're going to get into a job many years later, and then you're going to say, oh, I remember when that guy, I can't remember his name, but he talked about motivation and motivational interviewing. And yeah, so do remember a certain part of that. And then once it's relevant to what you're dealing with, what you're working with, you start rehearsing that, and it starts strengthening that and regurgitating everything that comes back. Okay. So are you with me so far? All right.
Yes, sir.
So let's talk about reasons why we forget, okay? It could be an encoding failure. We talked about that. We talked about the stop signs, if you remember the stop signs in the penny. We use it every day, but there's no need for us to really encode the details of why we need to remember those things. So encoding, we talked about. Memory decay. Is the loss of memory due to passing of time, similar to what we saw with Ebbinghaus, right? Not a complete loss of memory, but a significant, almost down to 20% after 31 days passage of time. Okay. We can also blame forgetting on what's called memory trace. So memory trace is a physical change in the brain that occurs when a memory is formed. Okay, we talked about, so whoops, what happened? Physical. So we look at the neurons that are created when learning or memory is formed. If there's anything that supersedes that, which we'll talk about with retroactive and proactive forgetting or interference, those neural pathways are interrupted. They might be superseded by other neural pathways. So that's what memory trace is talking about. So let's talk about proactive. Let's talk about interference. Now, interference, as we know, is not necessarily forgetting, but we're adapting. We're changing the way that those neural pathways are formed, okay? Because if you remember, I think we showed in the biological perspective that we have our neurons, right? And these dendrites, and the axon that goes to terminal buttons that fit into other neurons, correct? Y'all with me so far?
Yes.
So this is one neuron, and these are multiple other neurons. So what would happen, according to interference theory, is that these neural pathways are formed. They branch off into other neural pathways. We'll say this one is dog. You might have, I had some charts up earlier. Dog has 4 legs. It's furry. Let's see, what would this one be? We'll say this one moos, right? Moo. All right. We know that dogs don't moo, right? But this breaks out of that scheme that we've learned. We no longer will call this neural pathway a dog because it doesn't fit. Instead, we're going to say this is probably a mammal. We've now adapted. We've rerouted that neuron to not isolate this because we know most mammals have 4 legs, they're furry, and they moo, right? We expand that when we learn that mammals also do what with their young? How do they birth their young? Anybody? Live birth? Okay. You with me so far? So live birth occurs with mammals, with the exception of a platypus, which doesn't fit into any model, right? So anyway, this neuron is constantly changing, and we experience interference when that occurs. So we have what's called retroactive which is info learned later interferes with what you're trying to recall. Interfere. Oops, later. Sorry. I'm sorry. Earlier. Is that right? Yeah, no. That's right. Later. So proactive